Ni Tech na Msangi ya jishinde.com.
We are now going to basically be able to handle the responses and in the workflow response handling, and we want to change the status of the document. We want to handle the status from pending, like the workflow response handling. There is a function that is released, created. Okay, where is it? Okay, we should have on OpenDocument. It is raised in the workflow response handling. When you open a document, it's raised. So here we do have now this on OpenDocument. We would like to handle it on our side because the procedure on OpenDocument will be run here in the workflow response handling, and it will raise the event. And so if it's the approval entry, it will run the open document again, and we now need to make sure that our document has been opened. So on open document, if not handled, then there's an error. So we need to handle it from here. And we do have another one that has got the procedure set status to pending approval. But you can see the set status to pending approval has been redirected to the approvals management. So we'll need to go to that as well. The workflow response handling, set status to pending approval. Because when we send for approval and it's awaiting approval, our document should turn to pending approval. We do have another one for OnReleaseDocument. So when the document is fully approved, we need to run this particular OnReleaseDocument. And I believe this is what we'll handle in the workflow response handling. OnReject document. OnReject approval request is also on the approvals management. So if it's rejected as well, we will handle the rejection of the approval request. So on reject approval request, we will basically be able to fetch our document from here and reject it if it's rejected, this particular approval entry. Okay, so the approval entry, when it's rejected, we will be able to fetch. But let's start it step by step. I've mentioned a little bit more, but we can now handle the document. Starting with OnOpen, and we have said that we are looking at the workflow response handling CodeUnit to be able to handle the reopening of the document. So when an approval has been sent and you need to reopen. Reopen is a situation where you have cancelled an approval request and you maybe need to change something. So it's been sent and you cancel approval request. So you reopen. So we will raise our T event subscriber and for the workflow response handling on open document. So we are looking at the on open document. We can just have it as on open document. Or what action do we need to reopen on open document? On open document is explanatory in this case, and it does have a record ref plus is handled, which is passed by reference. Let me confirm the order of the variables. The record ref and then handled. So if we handle it, we need to pass, we convert this to true. It means that now the opening document for our particular record has been handled, to just be able to make sure that ours has been handled. So we should define a variable for the record now, custom workflow header. At this point, we basically need to explicitly define this, and so we can say the case record ref dot number of, we are trying to determine what the record ref contains. So what does it contain? This record ref, does it have our custom workflow header? If it does, then we will basically get the table, or rather set the table to this custom workflow header. We are now transferring so this custom workflow header will contain the information that has been passed via this record ref. So it will now have the particular record that we really need to reopen, because this record ref will be referencing that record. Maybe it is custom workflow header number 4, custom workflow header number 5. It's being referenced by the record the record ref, and now we are now transferring it to a variable, because this is the variable that we understand. The record ref doesn't have all the functionalities that we need. We could maybe use the field number and modify, but it's not even user friendly, because the status field could have a different field number. It could be field number 1, field number 10, but the best is to just to have it set to this custom workflow header. Once it has been set, we now have the custom workflow header. We can use the validate so that we run anything in the status. In case we need to run anything in the status, we just modify, and then custom workflow header dot modify, and then it's handled. So we just confirm that it has been handled. So this one does not have any variant. We have reopened our document. Let me just confirm if everything is okay in far as reopening is concerned. Anyone that has been reopened, record ref is not passed by reference. It's only the other variable. So on OpenDocument, we are raising the event at this point, and we will now open. Like this one is saying reopen, it's passing the variant. But for us, we are just subscribing to this event. So if it's passing the variant at this point, what does it do? It will just make sure that it has been reopened. So we just reopen and modify. Okay, the next response is set status to pending, but we have realized that at this point, the set status to pending is calling the approvals management or set status to pending, which will definitely take us to the last value where after verifying all these documents, what it does, we actually set the table as when we subscribe to this after set status to pending, set status to pending approval. We will set the table to our particular record, our particular custom record, and then we validate the status to pending approval, modify, and then return a variant, which is it passed by reference? I believe so, because it's taking the record ref variant and then this particular value. The record ref, not, this is passed by reference, the variant. So we need to return the variant back in the way it has been passed. as and we have set it back to the value of the record that we are modifying after we have modified that particular record. So where is our custom workflow code unit? We'll basically be able to subscribe again to the code unit workflow response handling. So okay, no, it's approval management. When you are setting the status, you guys are just looking at me making mistakes. You guys are not good people. At this point here, I'll just say on set status to pending approval. So what we are doing is we will set status to pending approval, and it's taking a record ref, a variant, and it is handled in that order. So we'll of course use the case to be able to confirm if this is the value of database custom workflow header. Then if we do have our table that we love, the custom table that we have created, it's a record of custom workflow header. So we will basically record ref, we'll set the table to the custom workflow header. So we have basically transferred the information to that, and then we'll validate the status to make sure that we run any code that is on the validate trigger. Once you create this and you need something to be done, when you're setting the status to pending in your table, or in your, maybe you need to post something, you need to create a certain notification, it's good to have it on the table. That's why you use the validate to run the code that is in there. So validate the status and say that this status will be the custom workflow header.status pending, and modify. I don't need to say it's true, but we can just run even the trigger that is in the on modify trigger. No big harm, the same as this. We run the code that is on the modify trigger when you say modify true, and we will basically assign the variant to this custom workflow header after we have set the status to pending approval. Now we need to go to approved, that is on approved or on released. But before we go to the approved, we need to populate the workflow event argument. Let me just subscribe, and then I'll tell you what we mean. Event subscriber, the code unit will be the approvals management, and OnPopulate. So for these cases here, we basically have to redo everything on this code because there is no other option. OnPopulate workflow argument. This is when we need to transfer some information from the workflow to our record. So let me confirm the order of the variables from the approvals management. We want to pass the document number on after populate. Wait. OnPopulate. So it's so easy. We just need to get the record ref. It has the record ref as the first one, approval argument, and then the workflow step instance. We just need this. So OnPopulate the argument. The first one is the record ref. This is the first one. This is the last one. So I'll just reorder the variables to make sure that we are calling them correctly. So again, here, I think we should have set our variable as a global. Custom workflow header. We set the table to this, and we will basically, any other information that you need to populate. So I just want to populate the approval entry document number to our custom workflow header dot document number. This will really help in reporting. So the document number of the document that you're approving should always be in the approval entry. Otherwise, if you need any report that is related to the approval entry, this is very key, very important. If you have another, maybe you have extended the approval entry and you need some more information from your tables to the approval entries, then this is the point where you populate the approval entry argument. So you're passing this by reference, so it means it will have this appended to the record, and once it's modifying, it will already be having that particular value. So we just need now to go to releasing and rejecting. So we are almost done with the code. This is actually the last part, guys, I promise. So subscriber workflow response handling on release document. Oh, so on release document, we just need to reopen. We are getting the record ref, and if it's handled, again we will do our daily ritual of having our record ref. The record custom, we will of course set it from the table, but after confirming number of begin end. Here as well, here we can still have the case here, the record ref dot number, to make sure that we have the right thing, so that if it's the database custom workflow header, we basically will be able to do that to make sure that we don't get an error when we are setting the table, as well as here. Then database custom workflow header begin end. We'll just now set our table and now at this point we need to release. So the custom workflow header dot validate status custom dot status approved or released custom modify it. I think we shall be done. We should be done. So no, okay, we are only one thing, the reject, the last one. I almost forgot. So we have now modified the status to approved. We are just handling the events. So in the workflows, get used to handling events. You're handling events. You'll create, you can do some practice of handling events. It's so easy. It's not tough the moment you get used to it. To event subscribers, again, another subscriber will be now for the workflow. Okay, approvals management on reject approval request. But for these ones, don't really cram where it should be. That's why we are having this class. So you can mirror this code and do your own. Don't ask your confirm. Okay, on reject is approval management code unit. That is where we are subscribing from. Because if you take a lot of time trying to deconstruct what's happening from whichever angle, it can be a disturbance from your case, and it's good that you have it well. So since we have populated our workflow in a different or in a very open way, we can have we need to determine the record ref that we'll use. Open the approval entry dot table ID. Okay, we can have it this way, or rather say case approval entry dot table ID. This is even easier. Table ID of. So if the table ID is database, now I think using of the case is also something that you'll use. Custom approval. Custom workflow header. So if it's the custom workflow header, ideally for us here, the beauty is I should have defined this as a variable. Custom workflow. I should have defined this as a variable. So let me just use an if, just in case you have not. You see the importance of populating the header. It means that the approval entry will be having our document number. So it's so good. Then begin. Because this one has been rejected, we will just validate dot status rejected and modify it, and we will be done. True. So if we reject and we need maybe to send a notification that your document has been rejected, we'll handle it in the table level because we have validated, and we will be able to get the record. So that's it for this video on the response handling of the workflows. We have started with handling the document. We have reopened the document first. We made sure we subscribe to the workflow response handling code unit, in this case here, the OnOpenDocument function, and then we basically set our table. Set table is to transfer the information that is in the record ref to the reference table that is the custom workflow header. And here basically we are making sure that the record ref.number really contains our table that we intend to, so that we may not have the table maybe having a different record ref, or the record ref has so many other objects, it can reference any record in the database. So we make sure that it is explicitly referencing our own table. After we have made sure that it's referencing our table, we reopen this particular custom workflow header, modify it, and we tell the system that we have handled it. So don't throw an error that there is no response for this function, because if you don't handle the response for reopen, when the user tries to cancel, they'll be told that they haven't done that well. And this is so important to make sure that you have handled it. You can send the handle, and if you comment this, maybe for instance, you will handle it, but the record won't be reopened. And then the other thing here is to have the OnSetStatustoPending approval. We subscribe to it so that we can set our status to pending. So when they click on send approval, the status will be converted to pending approval. And this is what we are doing here. We are modifying it finally. And there is another one here to populate the approval entry document, which will help us populate the approval entry document number with our document number from the custom workflow header. And then we will now release the document if everything is okay, and this is on approved. On when the workflow has been approved, the response for being released, we will modify. We'll make sure that we have now modified our record to released. And I think I should take a break as by my focus timer here. And let me confirm if everything is okay in the release. So we just release, perform manual release here. Most of the documents have been released using the record restrictions. So if there is no record restriction, then it is released and all that. But most of them subscribe and they look for record restrictions, the restricted records. So the restricted record manager, CodeUnit, I think 15 something there, handles that. You can confirm if the record is restricted, but for us, we are releasing them manually or explicitly. And here we confirm that it's approved, nothing much from the other side. And then we can reject, but the reject is not well handled because we have to fetch it from the approval entry, because the OnRejectApprovalRequest only has that particular approval entry that is being rejected. But most of the time it does have the table ID, and we confirm that this table ID is whatever table that we'd like to reject, to make sure that we are rejecting the right table. And we get, since we have populated this approval argument, we do get our specific document number for the custom workflow header, and then we reject it. The coordinate that I was saying, it is what? Restricted record management. This is another code unit that you can use if you don't want to have. You can have the option. Maybe you don't want to convert these statuses to open, to released. You just want them to remain the way they are. You can use the restricted records. So you can have a look at this code unit 1550. If it's not a requirement for you to be reopening the statuses, similar to how the general line has been handled. So you see we have the restrict general line after insert. We have all these. This is something that you can explore on your own if you're not interested in reopening the way I've done it. So it's open. Okay, this is just to trigger you to understand how it's done, but just make it your own. It's your code, man. So that's it for this video. I believe now in the next video, we are not on the code. We are on the front end. To set up our custom workflow, we will set up table relations, event hierarchies, and finally, set up the workflow and test to confirm if whatever we have been doing, is it something that will work or not. So see you in the next video. Stay tuned. Make sure you finish this series if you have reached here. And if you started from the middle, go back and watched others. I will see you in the next video.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss the next one.